Hi, I'm Turk Strongman at Taranki Ramacharakan. Thank you for selecting this video on turning points in human perception. In this episode, the Oracle at Delphi. Before continuing, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, then I think it's in your best interest to go ahead and do that right now. And while you're at it, activate the notification bell feature. Share the joy of the channel with others, and if by the end of this video you find that you liked it, then please remember to give it a thumb up. And now, with those humbling requests having been humbly stated, let's move forward. Turning points in human perception. The Oracle at Delphi. Well, first of all, perhaps you have never heard of the Oracle at Delphi. So let me just fill you in a little bit before we get going. Let's put it like this. Here's something that I recently wrote, just a sentence or two. This ought to generally introduce the subject. Who was the famed Oracle at Delphi, whose counsel set Socrates on a path grounded in the axiom, know thyself, the primary axiom that affected the birth of Western civilization? Okay. Now, Socrates. If you've never heard of Socrates, many people, if they have heard of Socrates, if we were to ask them, can you think of Western civilization's original wise man, original philosopher, wise man, back at the time of the birth of Western civilization, which many people pinpoint being in Athens, Greece, at the time of Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, and those guys? Many people would say, oh, well, that would be Socrates. Okay, Socrates was the teacher, mentor of Plato, and many philosophers, even today, refer to Plato as the philosopher, with the entire history of Western philosophy that followed him amounting to an ongoing conversation that amounts to footnotes to Plato. And it all goes back to him. But Plato wrote in the form of dialogues, and the central figure in the dialogues was Socrates. Socrates never wrote anything. Plato wrote it for him, in a sense. Okay, so Socrates is some older guy who is kind of obnoxious in society. He is known to have a bulbous nose and bulging eyes, scraggly looking, probably not very well bathed, maybe had a body odor, probably his clothes didn't fit. He stood around on street corners in Athens, and he would approach people who were of public and social renown, kind of the upper crowd, and engage them in dialogue, especially this group called the sophists, who engaged in sophistry, which was the practice of selling wisdom to make a living. But these sophists, well, they didn't know very much. They acted like they did. They pretended to have wisdom. Maybe they thought they were smart. But they, in large, were buffoons. And, well, Socrates was kind of on a mission to tear them down and guide them to some real truth within themselves. Kind of following that axiom, know thyself. But he claimed to not know much at all. He didn't really tell anybody anything. He asked questions. He asked questions in a manner that guided people into, well, kind of tearing apart what they thought they knew, and then arriving at maybe some truth. But he's not the one who gave it to them. He would help them find it themselves. And he just claimed that he didn't know anything. I don't know. I know nothing. All I know is that I know nothing. Kind of sums up what people make of all they know that he really said himself, other than, well, this comes through Plato too. But anyway, where did Socrates go? When he wanted some counsel, he went off to Delphi, where there was an oracle. An oracle, before I knew what an oracle was, when I heard of the oracle at Delphi, which is all we know from Plato's works about Socrates and the oracle at Delphi, is that he went to the oracle at Delphi. And over the entrance to this oracle at Delphi's place, was a little sign, a little placard that said, "Know thyself." Other than that, we know nothing about the oracle at Delphi. Well, this video is about who really was that. An oracle, what I thought, until I found out exactly what an oracle is, when I heard of the oracle at Delphi, I thought of some miracle. A miracle at Delphi, like some stone with water in it, and you look at it and you get enlightenment or something. But no, an oracle is like a fortune teller. A glorified fortune teller. A fortune teller maybe times 10. Grand fortune teller. A meta fortune teller. At Delphi. So all we know from Plato is that Socrates went there. But who really was this person? It's always been a mystery until a person named Manly P. Hall, a 33rd degree Freemason, earlier in the 1900s, said that he discovered a little bit more about this person, this oracle at Delphi. And when he published what he found, Lord knows how he found it, he wasn't taken seriously as a historian. As a historian into mystery schools, mystery teachings, wisdom teachings, and so forth. Secret teachings. He wasn't taken seriously until about 10 years after he died, and some archaeologists dug up some stuff that confirmed what he found about the oracle at Delphi. So listen. If we think of Socrates, the wise old guy, who was actually put to death because of his shenanigans, his philosophical shenanigans, getting others to know themselves, especially the sophists. See, they didn't like it, what he was doing, because he interrupted their way of making a living. He exposed them as like frauds. Well, they didn't like it. He was eventually put to death on various charges, including the corrupting the morals of minors. Because he would do this stuff in front of the kids, They said he was corrupting their morals, which is rather interesting for a culture which thought it was pretty wise for older men to have anal sex with young boys. Anyway, by our own standards, that's a little bit weird, but back then it wasn't. Okay, so anyway, who was this oracle? What did Manly P. Hall discover? Well, listen. Long story short, he discovered. Now, wait. Picture what? Picture Socrates, all right? Now, you picture this old guy with a beard, maybe a bald head, going around, kind of like maybe pursuing a path that maybe he was set on in accordance with this axiom: know thyself. Now, if Socrates is known as Western civilization's original wise man, to whom all of Plato's works really paid tribute, well then, what would be what do you picture with respect to the person known as the oracle at Delphi? Who would Socrates be going to? I tended to picture some sorcerer-looking person, long beard, staff, wizard's hat, something like that, turns out that it was, well, as far as I recall, Manly P. Hall said that it was a young lady. Now, by our standards today, looking back then, a young lady, young female, would be a girl. Kind of like a little girl. I don't know, probably no older than 10. I mean, what was the life expectancy at that time? This was back in the days of lots of mystery schools going on, and, well, as throughout lots of history, virgin sacrifices to the gods. Virgin meaning young girl, little girl. Virgin being a nice way to put it. Well, turns out the oracle at Delphi was a girl, little girl, young girl. We sat on a little tripod by herself in a little cavern of her own, inhaling fragrant smoke, in other words, incense, telling fortunes to the locals, with a little sign that said, "Know thyself." And then there was Socrates, who would come to her, an ugly old fart who nobody cared much about, who would come to her, and whatever she was talking to him about had a lot to do with this idea of know thyself, know thy true nature, know thy inner self. Perhaps something like humanity's true self, the true ego, and its unlimited potential, which is an idea that on the good side of secret societies and their initiates have for a long time kept rather well hidden, probably for mostly political purposes, especially throughout the history of Europe, when the kings and the popes didn't want the masses to know of such a thing, because it would take away the kings and the popes' power. So, know thyself. A young girl. And what effect did she have on Socrates? Well, she set him on a course in his life that ideologically, philosophically, on the ideological side and the philosophical side, affected the birth of Western civilization. Which ideologically was grounded in the search for meaning. And throughout the history of the pursuant history of secret societies, was able to actually manifest itself outwardly finally, according to Hall again, and what he uncovered, and wrote about extensively and lectured about extensively with the founding of the United States. The founding fathers, in large, being members of Freemasonry. They were finally able to manifest outwardly in their concepts behind the founding of the United States and the principles, the ideals upon which the country was founded and birthed. The ideals based on the search for meaning and the freedom to do so. What has been kept hidden on the good side of secret societies, that is, for a long time. this little girl as a fortune teller, a seer, quietly sitting in a little cavern, breathing incense smoke on a little tripod. Said Socrates on a course that brought all this about through time. Now, that would be quite a coincidence, wouldn't it, if she wasn't a fortune teller, a seer, but she was one of those. And where did she get this idea, know thyself, at such an early age? I suggest here that this oracle at Delphi, this young girl, is perhaps the most powerful human female known to mankind. I'm in awe about it, over her. And why would she be just tucked away in a little cavern by herself? Now, this is conjecture on my part. And here's my opinion. You see, now reading something else that I wrote. At the time and general place of Socrates, mystery schools were a dime a dozen. A little band here, a little initiation there, and sophistry, that practice of pseudo-wise men blowhards, made for a decent income. Philosophy history books say little about the mystery schools at the time. But often the big mysteries were things like, well, this pre-Socratic philosopher named Thales. I can just imagine him. Well, my disciples, I think the fundamental component of reality is water. That's what he said. Maybe their secret den was by a river. Oh, and then there were the ones like Dionysius, with his famed rites, the Dionysian rites, and his little group of lip sealers. To the best of my understanding, his big thing was getting drunk and doing a little revelry. And who knows what else behind closed doors. And then there was that cool young girl. Where were her parents? Did they know she was off telling fortunes to the locals? Most likely she did it because she had it like that. And it got her some food. The oracle at Delphi. Thing is, what with a dark history of virgin sacrifices to the gods, which is a nice way to say raping the shit out of them while we're demon-possessed, and then hacking them to bits to feed our so-called gods, a nice helping of life force violently dispatched from little girls, root chakra, before the little girls get their first 7-year metabolic shift. What with all that going on, no wonder. Perhaps the most cool and goddess-like little girl I've ever heard of. Perhaps the most powerful female human being known to mankind that tucked herself away in her own little cavern all by herself. I mean, what with all these highfalutin buffoons running around looking for their next life force right bit of little for use in their rights. And boy, if they knew of her, what she was really capable of, what power she had, they would have wanted her. She had smarticles. The oracle at Delphi, ladies and gentlemen. Little girl. Smart enough to tuck herself away and do her real work. Only with Socrates, who nobody would suspect, because he was just a pain in the butt. And look what it brought about. The birth and rise of Western civilization. On the philosophical side. Did you like the video? Give it a thumb up. Didn't you like it? Give it a thumb up anyway. And if you still haven't subscribed to this channel, I think you should do it right now. Activate the notification bell feature. Share the joy of the channel with others. I'm Turk Strongman at the Ron Q Ramacharaka. Now go be well.